Human history is full of wars, revolutions, and great discoveries. But there are certain years when Mother Nature reminds us who's really in charge. When the plague struck Europe in 1347, people believed it was the end of the world. When the world plunged into war in 1914, many thought civilization had collapsed for good. Yet in 2018, medieval historian Michael McCormick of Harvard University made a statement backed by scientific data. The worst year to be alive was 536. Why not 1944? Why not the years of the Black Death? Because in 536, it wasn't only people who died. The spirit of the world did too. The sun itself seemed to vanish from the sky. In the spring of 536, the people of Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, woke up to something unnatural in the heavens. The sun was still there, but it no longer shone as it always had. Its color was faded, its light was weak. One of the era's most important historians, Procopius, recorded the horror in chilling words. The sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during the whole year. It seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse. This wasn't a brief, passing event. It was the beginning of a global darkness that would last 18 months. At midday, people couldn't even see their own shadows. A thick bluish haze hung in the sky like a blanket, covering the entire world. But what was this haze? A punishment from the gods, or the omen of an approaching apocalypse? For centuries, the mystery of this dark veil remained unsolved. Some historians blamed a comet impact, others a massive meteor shower. But in 2018, an ice core extracted from the Colnefetti Glacier in the Swiss Alps revealed the truth with surgical precision. Each layer of ice is like a photograph of the atmosphere from that year. In the layer corresponding to 536, scientists found shards of volcanic glass. Those fragments acted like a genetic fingerprint and they pointed to one place, Iceland. In early 536, a colossal volcanic eruption in Iceland blasted millions of tons of sulfur and ash into the atmosphere. Winds carried the cloud across the entire northern hemisphere. This was not an ordinary eruption, it was a super-eruption. Sulfur aerosols reached the upper atmosphere and reflected sunlight back into space like a mirror, trapping Earth in freezing darkness. If sunlight can't reach the Earth, temperature collapses. Modern climate models show that in 536, global temperatures dropped suddenly by 1.5 degrees Celsius to 2.5 degrees Celsius. That might sound small, but on a planetary scale, it's catastrophic. This plunge pushed the world into the coldest decade of the last 2,300 years. Chinese imperial records speak of snow falling in the middle of summer in July and August and crops freezing in the fields. In Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, dust storms and unprecedented cold swept the land. In Europe, trees stopped growing. Scientists studying ancient tree rings today see that the ring from 536 is almost invisible, meaning the tree went into survival mode. Back then, the economy was entirely agricultural. No crops meant no life. Between 536 and 539, the world entered one of the worst famine periods in human history. Irish chronicles mourn a lack of bread from 536 to 539. People first consumed their stores, then they slaughtered their animals. But the cold didn't end, the sun didn't return. Societies began to unravel, and people started migrating in search of more livable lands. These mass migrations would shake the fragile balance of empires already hanging by a thread. The volcanic winter of 536 froze and starved the world. But the true blow, the one that would crush a weakened humanity like a hammer, was a biological weapon of nature. Historians call it the Plague of Justinian. Scientifically, it was the first major outbreak of bubonic plague caused by Yersinia pestis. So what did the climate catastrophe of 536 have to do with the plague? The connection was simple. Ecological collapse. As temperatures dropped and ecosystems broke, rodents and the fleas living on them were forced to migrate. The origin is still debated. Some argue Central Africa, others Central Asia. But the result was clear. Starving humans and rats alike rushed into ports and cities searching for food. In 541, only 5 years after the sun doomed, the plague arrived through Egypt and struck the beating heart of the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople. Emperor Justinian dreamed of restoring the Roman Empire to its former borders, turning the Mediterranean back into a Roman lake, but nature refused. Once the plague entered the city, records claim 5,000 people per day died at first, then 10,000. Graveyards overflowed. Trenches filled with bodies. People began loading corpses onto ships and abandoning them at sea or stacking them inside empty buildings. Famine had shattered the people's immune systems. Even a simple infection had become a death sentence. Emperor Justinian caught the plague and survived in what seemed like a miracle, but his empire was not so fortunate. There were no farmers left to pay taxes, no soldiers left to swing swords. Rome's glory died beneath a sunless sky, between piles of plague-ridden corpses. Darkness struck the Central Asian steppes as well. For Turkic tribes, livestock herds were everything, and they perished as pastures froze solid. Hunger forced steppe people south and west in massive waves of migration. This climate crisis buried the Ruran Khaganate and paved the way for the rise of the Gagturk Khaganate. The fate of the Turks was rewritten in the icy cold of a sunless steppe. Across the ocean, the Maya were losing faith in their gods in a world without sun. Cornfields dried up, construction halted, vast cities were abandoned. If a king could not bring back the sun, then his rule meant nothing. That great silence in Maya hieroglyphs was, in truth, the scream of a collapsing civilization. Even though the sun slowly began to reappear after 18 months, the world's balance had already been broken. The first eruption of 536 was followed by other massive volcanic events in 540 and 547, triggering the period climate scientists call the Late Antique Little Ice Age. The planet would not return to normal temperatures for about 100 years. Yet humanity, as always, adapted even to the worst conditions. Farming methods changed, people turned to more resilient crops. Survivors began rebuilding a new world. The year 536 wasn't only an ending, it was also the birth of something new, the end of antiquity, and the rise of the harsh, disciplined structure of the Middle Ages. As scientists continued studying ice cores, they found something extraordinary in the layer dated to 640, a sudden spike in atmospheric lead. Why is that important? Lead is a byproduct of silver mining. In the medieval economy, silver was the foundation of trade and currency. Between 536 and 640, lead pollution in ice cores dropped nearly to zero, meaning mines shut down, trade collapsed, and the world entered economic paralysis. But the rise in 640 proves something remarkable. Humanity began mining again, producing silver again, trading again. The dark century had passed, and the first foundations of the modern economy were being rebuilt. One of the most striking indirect consequences of the 536 catastrophe unfolded in the Middle East. The Byzantine and Persian empires were completely drained economically and militarily by the volcanic winter and the plague that followed. Their massive fortresses still stood, but they were hollow shells. As these two giants exhausted each other and struggled through crisis, the Arabian Peninsula, due to its geography, was affected differently. In the early 7th century, the rise and rapid expansion of Islam was, in many ways, the result of this northern power vacuum. If the disaster of 536 had never happened, and Byzantium and Persia had remained at peak strength, world history might have taken a completely different path. Now we come to the question that truly matters. What if it happened again today? In 536, the world population was only a fraction of what it is now. Today, Feeding 8 billion people depends on a perfectly functioning global supply chain. The year 536 reminds us that even with all our modern technology, we are still fragile guests beneath the sky. When nature says stop, stock markets, armies, and advanced devices can instantly turn into nothing but meaningless piles of metal. The year 536 is remembered as the worst year in human history because people truly believed there was no such thing as tomorrow. They lived in fear, waking each morning unsure whether the sun would rise, and yet we are here. We are the descendants of those who survived that dark winter and that horrifying plague. This story is not only a disaster scenario, it is proof of human resilience, the instinct to survive, and the way we evolve under pressure. The ashes of 536 became the soil in which the modern world was fertilized. So next time you step outside and feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, take a moment to realize just how lucky you are. If you'd like to continue this journey with us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Until we meet again in the next episode, in another mysterious story from the Tree of Humanity.